At any rate, everybody, I'm Susie Langley with Wanderful Tanzania and Parakeeto Adventures, but this webinar is again all about the Wanderful Tanzania brand. And today I'm joined by two dear friends of mine and people that have been on safari with me. I have with me today Kate Montag and Brian Tollefson. They are both photographers and both passionate about wildlife and travel and helping to promote those same things to many people around the world, as many people as possible, to get people out there traveling and doing photography. And then the other beauty queen that we've got up in the other square there, that is Heather Butler. She is my right-hand woman, and she is the one running all the behind the scenes of this technology. So if anything goes off the rails, it's her problem.
It's all my fault.
Yeah, she'll probably mute me now just to make a point. At any rate, the topic of today's webinar is both photography on safari and birding. And the reason we're combining those two is they just go beautifully hand in hand. And I've been wanting to run a birding safari for the last probably 3 or 4 years. I've been a lifelong just fanatic about birds. And yet when I went on my first safari 6 or 7 years ago, birds never even crossed my mind. I mean, maybe an ostrich, on a safari, but just the fact that there would be amazing birds there never really dawned on me. And then I got there and there were birds all around me, and I could find myself looking up at the treetops or searching the skies or in the long grass because some of the birds are on the ground. But when everybody else was looking for lions and zebras, I tended to be focused on birds. And that has been a continual theme for me, safari after safari. And now I'm watching other people that come on safari that have that same epiphany. They came for one expectation and then find themselves really drawn towards the birds. So I wanted to just keep this super loose and light, and I'm going to have Kate start. And Kate, if you can just kind of give everybody the introduction to your safari history, and then what safaris meant to you when you're doing them, what they mean to you still, like how you built those memories. And I hope you brought some photos that you can share with us to kind of tell your story.
I sure
So
did.
take it away,
I
Chica.
might have a video as well. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Kate Montag. I have been on safari in Africa 3 times now. I will say that I think the first thing that I like to tell everyone about Africa is that you immediately feel like you're home. And I'm a white Catholic Irish girl, and I still felt at home the second I touched the soil. It's almost as if the soil has a soul. And you go with this expectation of, I'm going on safari, I'm going to see elephants and bears and lions and tigers and oh my, and you end up falling completely in love with the people. Not only your guides, but the hotel staff, and if you're lucky enough to meet the tribes, you get to meet, these incredible people who are so welcoming and so happy. And you look at their lives and you think to yourself, oh my God, they have relatively nothing compared to what we have in the United States. And they are the happiest people you will ever meet in your life. There's got to be something to that. And it kind of changes your entire perspective on how you live your life when you get back. You start to really have more gratitude in your life, I think, for the conveniences that we have. And you take shorter showers and you use less electricity. And you're always kind of thinking in the back of your brain how you can be better at that.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole going on safari for animals and is really a misnomer, because you really end up falling for the people more than anything. And I've been on 3 different safaris, and I have had the blessing of going in 3 different seasons. So I've seen it in March when it is green and babies, and it's fascinating to see, all of the the little animal babies and moms. And sometimes you get the luck of running into a zebra being born, and you get to watch their first steps, and you get to watch them feed for the first time. It's incredible. It's just an incredible thing. And then I have been in August, which is when the crossing is, and that is something you cannot fathom until you're there. And it is overwhelming and fascinating and beautiful at the same time. It's this beautiful chaos that happens. And I think November is the last time that I went, and I would say that the lovely thing about November is that there's nobody there. You have the whole Serengeti to yourself. And
Right.
it's the thing that I will tell you about Africa is that it feels like this magical combination of Treasure Island and Narnia and Dr. Seuss at the same time. And it's
I love that.
it's crazy. I mean, you see some of the most magical things that make you think of Dr. Seuss, and then the second later, you're looking at a pack of lions walking by, like it's Treasure Island, and you're the wonder of all of it. And the thing that you really want to try to do is to just put your camera down or just put your phone down and look around at where you are and be present in the moment, because it's so hard to do that when you're trying to shoot at the same time. You can go through some photos, Heather. I think that, for me, I have a couple of chronic illnesses, and before COVID, I could travel. Now, after COVID, it's not so easy. And I made a very conscious decision in my early 40s to travel. And credit be damned, I decided that I was just going to go, and I'd figure out a way to figure it out later, which is what I'm doing now. But I'll tell you, I would not trade these memories for anything.
Right.
I can't travel like I used to because of COVID, because I run the risk of getting deathly ill. And deathly ill while I'm on chemo treatment and across the world is not the best situation for me. So there isn't enough travel insurance for me to get for me to be comfortable in that situation.
Right.
So for me, I think it became this more than a journey, I would say. It's just it's a lifelong want to go back, and yet I'm not sure that that's possible. So for me, these memories are pure gold. I can go back through my photographs from any of the trips, and I'm right back there again with all the people that I met and the friends that I made and the amazing things that I've been able to see. And I wouldn't trade that for the world.
So I just want to interject that matches the talk track that you've heard me have with person after person, right? About trying to prioritize travel or prioritize those things in your life that you want to do. When we all assume we've got all the time in the world, and yet we all know people that have passed before their time, or the ones that always kind of make me cringe are the people that are like, oh, we're going to take that one big trip when we retire. We're going to work 50 years.
We're going to wait.
To take a trip.
Wait.
But there's no guarantee that you're going to be in physical health by the time you get to retirement.
If I had waited, I wouldn't be able to have gone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have seen the Arctic. I wouldn't have seen Scotland. I wouldn't have seen Africa. So many places that I traveled to in my 40s. I never would have seen any of it.
Right. And now you've got endless catalogs of memories, and you've got that metal image hanging on the wall behind you of the crossing. The big black and white behind her is just gorgeous picture of the wildebeest crossing the river. And sweetheart, you and I have had some amazing trips together to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't know how to describe that to people, but I'm here in Albuquerque right now because the people who traveled with me this last February loved each other so much, bonded so deeply on that one safari that they're already having a safari reunion in Albuquerque. People are coming from 3 different states. Brian and Maria and Kate, you have both been to our safari reunions already. You
Great.
just that shared experience of being in those situations is something that you just can't get on a trip to Hawaii, or you know what I mean. It's not an average vacation, I guess is
It's
what I'm
not.
saying.
It's
So I
that-
didn't mean to interrupt you, sweetie. If you want to take back up and go through some of these images and just
Sure.
spectacular.
Actually, let's go back to the chief and the kids. This was fun for me because this gentleman is the in the what is it, the upper left. He is the chief of the
Datoga.
Thank you.
Datoga.
And he has something like 13 wives, Susan.
Yeah. Yeah.
13
Yeah.
wives and 100 and something grandchildren. And these are some of his grandchildren. Well, he had never seen an image of himself. And this is true of all the tribes when we go. And I have a tiny little printer that I bring with me, and it's hooked up to my cell phone. I take a picture with my cell phone, and I can print a picture right there on the spot. So he's looking at the picture that I created for him of he and his grandchildren.
And that is just so otherworldly too. Like if you think the only time you've seen their faces in a reflection in a lake or something like that,
Yeah.
it's a powerful icebreaker for sure.
It
Because
is.
you're never quite comfortable when you roll up on this family, right? Like you're in their thing, and then their smiles come out, their hearts open up, and then you show a picture like this, and all the barriers just come down. They come
Right.
crashing.
Right.
Yeah,
They do.
pretty awesome.
True. The Hazabi is very funny with that too. They're the last tribe of hunter-gatherers, and none of us speak the same language except for the interpreter. So it's like a clicking language, and it's a very odd language. And so the second you bring out these pictures and they start to realize what's happening, they're lining up around you, like they're gathering around you to look at your screen and see what's on it, and you're fascinated by it. And you know, 1 minute you are cooking a bird over an open fire in the middle of the bush, and the next minute you're like having fun with these guys and sitting down with them, and they're laughing and looking at these images, and the mothers have never had images of their children, so that's very dear to them. And they do end up greeting you like family.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
really-
It's crazy. That hug, the picture of the hug down below, I think that's Lori
It is.
Lori
Marcana.
Yeah. And but that's one of, I don't know,
Yeah.
7 hugs that I've seen that are like that. It's very
Yeah.
special.
And the interesting thing is that you and I can go there and they will recognize us.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
been there 2-3 times.
The last 2 times I've gone, I haven't gone to see the tribes and
Okay.
miss them. I'm
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
we have to keep doing the
It's
tribe.
a
So,
fascinating experience to go be with them.
all right.
The next slide.
Oh, God, I love, this is my favorite picture you've ever taken.
This is Zachariah, actually. He is the guard at the Ngorongoro Crater Camp. He watches the tents overnight to make sure no animals, come in. But he's this wonderful man, and he's very quiet and very peaceful. And I just asked him if I could take a portrait of him, and that is what came of it.
Well, I remember you wandering down the path. So there goes Zachariah and Kate. Like, where are they going?
Yeah, where are they going?
It
Yeah.
wasn't until we got home and you produced this image that my mind blew up. Like, I saw him. I didn't have that, in my head and you wandered away and got away from the group, and he posed for you, I guess.
And I wasn't close to him. I was not right up in his face. I was probably 15 feet away from him.
Wow.
And
He's just a
using a
spectacular.
lens, obviously, but
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that image. I love that picture.
absolutely. Next slide.
Yeah.
Here are my birds. I am generally not a big bird person. You'll notice that all of my birds are sitting on things, not flying. I am not very good at capturing birds. but I can catch them when they're sitting on a thorny acacia or running across the
Absolutely.
crater. So that's and I have come to enjoy them more and more being on safari with people who actually know what the birds are and what they do and how they behave and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, you see all kinds of different birds that you just never expected. Absolutely never expected. And then
And so the birds that are in the top left, just go back real quick, Heather, sorry. The birds that are in the top left are the African gray crowned cranes, and that's the national bird of Tanzania. And but somebody once told me, like, if you're trying to teach a kid how to mix and match colors, like, just look at nature. Nature never puts any colors together that don't absolutely match each other. That bird is rust color, cream color, white, dark gray, light gray, red, and their eyes are blue. And when you see them, you could not have put it together any more beautifully. They're absolutely spectacular species and huge when their wingspan's out. I think it's probably like an 8-foot wingspan. And then the lilac breasted roller is the smaller bird in the picture. Again, brown and lilac, and that's only the color you see when his wings are folded. When he unfolds his wings, you can't breathe because it takes your breath away. They're so beautiful. So yeah, I think Brian's going to show us. I think you have one of those in your lineup. So
I don't think I do. I don't think I have a,
okay.
a lilac
Well, if
breasted
somebody
roller.
wants to see it, they're going to have to come on. They're going to have to come on safari with us. Oh, Kate. Oh,
these are the babies.
baby.
We watched this zebra being born. Watched her first steps. She was still wet. It was insane.
Clearly.
Insane. And then we love the warthogs and the impalas as well. So.
Yep. Great.
And then this lion clearly had eaten. He was not impressed with us. And you can see the blood on his face, and he definitely had
He's
eaten.
got the meat sweats.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Definitely got
Those are great.
and
those cheetah, I don't know if they're cheetah sisters or cheetah brothers, but they were
boys, but we're not sure.
Yeah, they were they posed on that termite mound for probably 45 minutes. Like,
yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And this is the wildebeest is just the beautiful chaos I was describing.
That's exactly right. Thundering hooves.
And
remember how mad we were when the dust started to come up? We're like, because to the naked eye, it's like, it's going to ruin everything. Without that dust,
it's pure magic. It's pure magic. Beautiful.
Exactly right. That's wonderful, hon. Oh, okay.
Some black and whites. I love the little baby in the elephant one on the lower left.
Oh, you barely see him. He's down there. Yeah.
He's a little tiny baby.
Oh.
He's just a teeny guy. And I was very grateful when we saw the crossing that nobody died. No crocodiles. Like I didn't have to see that.
Right.
I was perfectly happy not seeing that.
I think I've seen, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them now, and I've only seen like the perilous situation 2 times, and I've never seen like the full on, craziness that can happen. But just the chaos of the animals themselves. What is depicted in that picture right there. It is instinct, right? It's, I'm going to go with my herd because I have a better chance of getting across the river if I go when everybody else does, right? Like, I don't have to outrun one. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, next slide. And these we had a felonious baboon break into our truck, and we were concerned about the camera equipment, but she wanted the potato chips instead. And
her baby,
there with the baby. Would not share. And then this hippo was one of, I think, probably 4 or 5 that were in the area that day. And I was shocked at the teeth. I'd never seen a real hippo's teeth before, or how their mouths were made. So that totally fascinated me.
Yeah.
And the bird there is I want to say he's a spectacular starling.
Yes.
Superb.
Thank
Superb
you.
starling.
Starling, thank you. We named him a spectacular one because we had a
Yeah.
friend of ours on the trip that decided that he was spectacular.
Yeah.
So
Spectacular starling. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, yes.
and then that is March in the Crater, and those sunsets and sunrises, and just look, you could just photograph the sky in Africa and be perfectly content.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
it's just mind-boggling. I mean, you can see forever, it feels like.
Beautiful. Beautiful stuff.
So that is it.
Okay. Thank you so, so much for sharing all of that with everybody. I really enjoyed, I haven't seen your photos for a long time, right? And
Yeah.
wonderful to walk back, because I don't know about you, but I think Brian can even understand this. When you go back through your photos, you remember taking them. Like you remember who you were next to, what was going on. And in Brian and I's case, remember some of the off-color commentary that was happening while we were photographing elephants one time. And most of my guests have moments with elephants, but
We do get right into the action at certain points.
Yeah, exactly.
A little closer than we'd like.
And Kate, I have to tell you, I was on safari with Fran and Dustin and Jessica, and I was telling them about how our first couple of safaris, like Kate's camera lens is here and my camera lens is here, we're shooting the same thing. And then we'd get home and Kate would put up an image and I'd say, Kate, why are you posting my pictures? I don't have your pictures, Susie. We were simultaneously clicking 3 inches apart. They're not really going to be that different, right? So yeah, so that there's something about too much togetherness. So Kate, all right, so I want to shift gears a little bit now and bring Brian in and let him loose on showing his images too. But Brian, you and I had a beautiful conversation about setting up this birding safari that I've been so excited to do for a few years. And Brian graciously offered to like co-sponsor or co-lead that safari. He's an amazing photographer, wildlife, landscape, all kinds of stuff. He's an amazing photographer. But I don't want to scare people away right out of the gate by saying, oh, this is, a photographer, but, like make it sound like it's harder or bigger or more exclusive, because we want to open it up to everybody. So why don't you show us what you got and tell it?
The cool thing about the safari that we went on, and again, we went in November as well, but we went in November of 21, right after the Serengeti had opened up from COVID. And there were literally no other trucks around. Right. 90% of the time that we were there, we were alone. Just the 8 of us in that Land Cruiser, with Felix never getting lost. It was amazing. But on that safari, every day for probably 90% of the day, there was action going on that was close enough to the truck that you could get really vivid, excellent photographs with a cell phone.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that cell phones are really well set up for, that those of us with the really big, long lenses have trouble doing, is wide scale video. So you could take a video of that whole herd of elephants walking across the savannah, where with my 600 millimeter lens, I'm going to get 2 or 3 elephants at a time. And I can't kind of back away from it well enough to really show the scope. There was one day near the end of our time in the Serengeti where we were near the tail end of a very large herd of wildebeests and zebras. And the only way I could really capture it was with my cell phone, because you just couldn't get a sense of the scale of what 1,000 wild animals walking, in this coordinated herd really looks like, except to do it that way. The number of times where you really needed a long lens to pick something out was actually relatively small. I mean, it's helpful. Like this, the image here of the zebra, that zebra's on top of a ridge inside Ngorongoro crater. And he was probably a couple hundred meters away from us. But, you know, I have, out of the 10,000 photographs that I brought home from that safari, I'd say that 10% of them were far enough away that it really made a difference that I was shooting with a lens that big. But being able to see everything, I mean, we had a leopard. We were driving around one morning and we had a leopard that we saw in a sausage tree. And that tree was maybe 100 meters off the road that we were on. And we waited for a minute and we thought, okay, well, we're not really getting great photographs here. Why are we waiting? And Felix said, well, you just be patient. He's going to move. And sure enough, he got up off the branch, climbed down, jumped on the ground, walked to the road, and then spent the next quarter mile walking right next to us. He would move, and then we'd reposition the truck to get a little closer to him, and then he'd move again. And he was on his way to some different trees that he climbed up into. And then we were able to get some spectacular shots of him, you know, with that brilliant, beautiful, thunder-looking cloudy sky behind him, silhouetted in this other sausage tree. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And the best images from all of that time that he was on the ground came from my wife, Maria, with her cell phone, because he was too close for me to use either of the two camera bodies I had and the lenses I had on.
That's absolutely the truth. Yeah. They get really close sometimes and your big gear is almost worthless at that point, right? So
yeah, I mean, I like having it around. It comes in really handy. But it can also, in some cases, not be what you want. What you really want is your cell phone.
yeah.
You have an
particularly,
image of that, don't you, Brian?
what's that?
You have an image of that cheetah, don't you?
I have an image. I don't think I have an image of that leopard in this.
That's what I'm thinking of.
This. Well, so I'll jump into this leopard story.
Yeah. Jump to the
So,
story.
Sorry, I mistook that for the same leopard.
No, that's
No,
okay.
It's all good.
This photograph is taken from a moving hot air balloon.
Wow.
Yeah, we did the balloon trip there, and I highly recommend it. I've done a lot of interesting things in my life. I spent 40 years with the Navy, and I've been to a lot of really cool places. You know, I've been to the pyramids, I've seen Stonehenge, all that stuff. But that early dawn balloon ride in the Serengeti is on my top 10 list.
I agree.
It was great.
Yeah.
But we were up in the balloon and had been flying around, and, you know, we'd seen a herd of antelope, and we'd seen a bunch of giraffes from the air. And it's funny, they look very different when you're up above them. And we saw some hippos, and, you know, it's just wonderful scenery. And then we're getting near the end of the ride, and we're gonna start heading down to our landing area. And our pilot, who was fabulous, one-time Canadian national ballooning champion, got a call on the radio from the guy, his ground crew that was in the landing area, and said, hey, there's a leopard in a tree about a mile from where you want to land. And so the pilot said, okay, talk me to it. And he started changing altitude so he could pick up different winds. And we flew right by this leopard. That leopard is about 15 feet up in this tree. And if you look at the left side of the image, you can see that there are the remains of a Thompson gazelle in the tree with him. Leopards, when they get a kill, will often drag it up into a tree because there it's safe from the two things that steal food from them, lions and hyenas. And so he's got his lunch up there in a tree with him. And you can see, I've got other images. I got a series of images as we're getting closer to him, and you can see him looking out through those leaves like, what the devil is this? As this balloon full of people just kind of drifts on past him. It was cool. If you get a chance to do the balloon ride, it's an experience not to be missed. It's really, really cool.
I agree. That's one of my favorite singular stories of all the safaris is the time that I didn't go on the balloon ride and my guests go floating right past a leopard in a tree and he gets the shot, right? Like I could have been on that balloon, Brian. I wouldn't have got the shot. I just want to continue. I want to point at the time. We've got about 7.5 minutes or so left.
Okay.
So
can we, let's go to the next image. Okay, this is an impala. And this is one of my favorite images. This is taken in Tarangire National Park. But that's a big male impala, and he posed for us beautifully, and it's just seeing stuff like that. I mean, I was a zoology major in college. I wanted to be a college professor and teach zoology and stuff, and my life kind of took a left turn, and I went in the Navy instead. But I've always fascinated by life. I, subscribed to National Geographic my whole life, and was always just fascinated by the images and the stories that they had, and being able to go on one of those stories and capture those images was just, again, it was a really peak thing for me to be able to do. So we go to the next one, please. Okay, so now we're going to talk about birds a little bit. This is an osprey, an image that I shot here in Southern California, about 5 miles from my house. And I do a lot of bird photography, and I'm pretty good at it. And I can help people with their camera settings because it's a very different thing. Shooting a bird in flight, you need a much faster shutter speed. You need a different autofocus mode, lots of different settings things. But I can work with clients before the safari and during the safari for the one, because I'm going to go on the birding safari next May. I can work with clients on that to make sure that they have an opportunity to get images like this. So you've got something that's just crystal clear, tack sharp, and really captures the sense of what that animal is all about. So go to the next one. This is a tawny eagle that we photographed in Serengeti National Park. And you can see this eagle has feathers that run all the way down its legs to its feet. That means it's a booted eagle. It's a different family of eagles. There are multiple species in it, but this one, again, they're kind of unique because they have that feathery coating all the way down their legs. And this one, it almost looks like he's wearing a necklace with a great big medallion on it, like he's.
It does. It looks like Flava Flav.
Yeah, but again, being able to get it framed right, to get the composition that you want, and get those really tack sharp details, is something that it comes with knowing your gear really well. And I'm happy to help people be able to do that. Because the animals they're just fantastic. The birds in Eastern Africa are just outstanding.
One of the things I want to point out, I think we have about 5 minutes, and I'll let you keep going with the heron in a second. But one of the things that Brian and I talked about in preparation for doing this birding safari was shooting with intention, right? Coming prepared, understanding your camera, doing some preset modes. And Brian is not only going to be on the safari, but he's willing to coach people through that process ahead of time. Like, so for the month leading into the safari, he'll be running sessions with anybody who signs up to help them be prepared so that when they're there and in the moment, they're not fumbling around and then the bird's gone, right? Like, we want them to be able to take advantage.
It's a horrible feeling when if you've got a great shot with the wrong settings and you're having to take your eye off of your composition to do all the buttonology.
And there they go, right? Yeah.
I will help people not have to do that.
Yeah. So
let's go to the next one.
Yeah, please
keep. Yeah, let's skip past the heron. Okay. So part of bird photography is knowing a little bit about animal behavior, how the animals behave. This is shot here in San Diego at one of the local wetlands that Maria and I like to go down and photograph. And I like to go down there early morning when the light's still really soft, and at the time of a high tide, because water's flowing into the wetland, more fish are coming in, there will be more birds, they will be more active, you'll get to see more and different behaviors. And this particular day was on the flood tide of a king tide. So it was an exceptionally high tide, water was coming in really fast. And in an area where on a typical day you might see 5 or 6 birds fishing, there were 40 to 50.
Wow.
And because they're so crowded together, they started getting agitated with one another. So this bird looks like it's posing on a runway, but actually it's about to chase off another snowy egret that was where it wanted to be fishing.
Oh,
That's aggression behavior that you see there. And so you spend a little time watching them and you can get set up for, okay, I think he's about to do this, and get ready and capture that shot.
yeah. And so
It's-
that's knowing the behavior. Yeah, that's awesome. Important.
This is another one where you can see, I shot this is down at La Jolla Cove, at the cliffs there where the pelicans roost. And this is a brown pelican that's coming up out of the water onto the cliffs. And I wanted kind of a combination here. I wanted to be able to get a really fast shutter speed so you could freeze all of that and see all of that beautiful detail in his wings and the little tiny feathers on its shoulders and on its belly, but also get a sense of the motion that it's going through. And so you can see here, you can actually see the individual water droplets coming off of its backside, off of its feet, off of its tail feathers as it's coming up out of the water onto the cliff. And it really gives you that sense of motion while at the same time freezing the image so that you get all of that detail. And again, that comes with doing a little bit of preparation about what you want to try and achieve in the photographs that you're getting.
We have 1 minute left, Bri.
Okay.
So sorry. Go ahead.
And so I want to go back and echo what Kate said about the tribes and about the people. The day that I got to spend with the Datoga and the next day that I got to spend with the Hadzabe hunting, those are 2 days that I will remember to my very end. It was the coolest part of the safari, sitting inside that hut with all of those wives talking to us about their lives and asking us about ours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the animals and the photography, that's really cool. But the people there, the regular people you meet in Tanzania, the drivers, the vendors, the staff at the camp, they're fantastic people and they are so welcoming and so giving. It's just great.
Thank you so much. And we've got about a few seconds left. This is going to cut off, so I apologize, but text me any questions. And otherwise, thank you for being here for this, everybody. And we will put this out in a recording. I think it probably just cut us off, right? But I think all of us are still on the call. Heather, is that correct? Okay. So we're not recording anymore, but it also didn't cut us off. So we can actually have
No, I'm
Brian.
still recording it.
You're still recording it. Okay. So now we can continue, but our official time period is over. We'll edit this part out. So if you want to keep going with what you were saying, I just didn't.
Okay,
last time
you can go on to the next bird photograph if you want. I think there's one more.
That was the last one.
Oh, that's the last one? Okay.
Okay. Maybe it was at the beginning. Remember how we skipped past a few? To get to that?
Yeah. So go back to the one of the heron.
There you go.
Okay, so again, I tend to shoot down at the wetland right at sunrise. And so this is an image where the bird has moved forward into the only spot that's lit. And everything else, you got that beautiful blue behind it and the little flecks of gold and red in the vegetation around.